when I talk about my first interview experience, I guess it was straight out of college. So there was this ITES company that I had joined in as a software developer. That was my first job. And when I was interviewing, the process started somewhere around afternoon, went on till like 12 in the night, and it was like so many colleges combined. And by the end of it, when I got the offer letter, I still remember I was smiling because my interview was almost very personal in nature, given the fact that they insisted on asking more about my family, my background, and they were interested to know more about me rather than the work that I did, or what I really did during my engineering. So that's it was one easy interview, if I may put it that way. But that's how my first interview went, and I thoroughly enjoyed the experience. And thanks to that job, I'm now an integral part of the corporate world.
Great, great. So I hope all of us get interviews like that, where we are asked more about us than what we have studied or what type of degree we have. So this is really nice. Now I would request Professor Jasneet to tell her experiences also.
First of all, thank you so much, all of you, for attending the webinar, giving us your valuable time. If I talk about my experiences, I have a very varied kind of experience, to be very honest. I still remember when I plunged into academic. That was my first experience. Before that, I had a corporate experience, but slowly and gradually, I wanted to move into academics. So up till now, thanks to the corporate working experience, the interviews are more formal in nature, right? I'll ask a lot of technical questions and everything. As this was my first experience, I wasn't prepared about the type of questions what they'll be putting me across through. So the first round of interview went really well. They liked me, right? And they asked me to wait for some time. I was expecting that okay, now the process is about to get over and I'll be leaving and they'll be sharing the details. If you're selected, we'll inform you. That is how it generally works into corporate. So I had that perception in my mind, and this head of the department who took my interview, he came and he said, "We really like you. Can you give us a demo session to like now on the spot?" Now that was a freezing moment for me. Okay, I really don't know how I did, how I performed, but yes, luckily I didn't. Obviously, everyone will have that jitters. Okay, in the stomach, you'll have your hands sweating out. You'll feel that sweat in your palms, the butterflies into your stomach. But the good part was that I worked into corporate for quite a bit of time, so I knew, thanks to the experience, I knew how to not show it into out through my face or through my movements or through my gestures. So I agreed to them, but I knew like what is going in my mind, how I'm going to do it. There are a lot of questions which everyone will be going through. I attempted it. I gave my best, right? I fumbled. I still remember I fumbled 2 times, and the interviewer or the HOD was very kind enough to me to give that opportunity. And he told me, if you really like to start again, you can do that. So that period, that moment gave me that confidence. Okay, that if they understand that this is my first attempt into it, plunging into academic, everyone will understand. It is just that you have to put the confidence. I gave that demo session, and at that point I got selected. In the I think I was competing with approximately 25 people for one single position at that point of time, because they were having lot of departments in that, and I was one of the candidate into single department, right? And that 25 candidates for single department they were competing into.
Mm-hmm.
So you will never know like what the interviewer or what that job profile will hold for you. So you have to take up challenges at that point of time. So that was
Okay.
my experience.
So we already learned a lot of things. First, we need to be prepared before the interview, and to be confident, because whatever type of question can come towards us, maybe we are not even expecting that type of question. And yeah, also that the competition is increasing every day, every year. So we need to be more prepared. Okay. So, according to a research, people do not like when they are not, given importance, and this applies for people who are interviewing you, or to the people who you have applied for a job. So and this happens in 90% of the situations, that it is already written somewhere that the name of the person who is going to take your interview, or who is the person you're applying to, but we tend to forget, or put that name in our CVs or in our job applications. So how do we identify the person who is finally going to take our interviews, and is it important to research about that person also before we go for the interview? Miss Dipti, would you like to answer this?
Yes, sure. I'll take that up. So, from the limited experience that I have with respect to 8+ years of corporate experience, what I've seen is a lot of times candidates may not know who the interviewer is in advance, right? The reasons can be umpteen. One of them could be they themselves might not have decided who would be interviewing the candidate. Secondly, the person who was initially scheduled to take the interview would have backed off and someone else is filling in to take the interview for that person. So oftentimes, and this mostly happens in bigger conglomerates wherein the interviewer may not be decided beforehand. But with that being said, whenever you have the knowledge and you have the access to your interviewer in the form of an email, at least a name, I would say it is imperative that you go ahead and research about that person on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a godsend social media for that matter. And since all of us or most of us are there on that particular platform, I think it would be silly enough to not use it and at least find who the person is, what are his or her interests, what does the person usually write on, and accordingly that will help you build a better relationship with the interviewer when you are interviewing. And you as a candidate will approach it more like a conversation as opposed to, what, I'm going to get interviewed for this particular role. Will I get the job? Will I not get the job? Right. So I think being having that upper hand advantage in terms of discovering who your interviewer is, and as well as going ahead and taking the pains to research about that person, will help you build a relationship during the interview. And irrespective of the outcome, you may make it, you may not make it. There can be, again, umpteen reasons why that doesn't happen, right? You may not be a culture fit, or right now you may not be a skills fit. But with that being said, the relationship that gets built, it will help you in your journey, in this long journey of your career that you're going to see. And you never know when that person would be of help to you in the near future or in the distant future. So in my honest opinion, if I knew who my interviewer is, I would definitely want to look that person up on LinkedIn at least once.
Sure. I'll also do that from now, because I think, like you just said, that it is not only about the interview. Even if the interview doesn't go well, I am already connected to a new person. So that's really wonderful. So recently, I read this book called Reinventing You, which stated that there are people who help us in some way or the other, and we are not able to reciprocate it in any manner, because we cannot give them gifts, or we cannot help them somehow. So in that case, giving a thank you note is something that really helps. So that helps for sure, but does it help in interviews also? Professor Jasneet, would you like to answer this?
Sure. I like to. When you talk about thank you notes, see, they have a very significant in the process of interview. Let's understand when I quoted, when I was applying or when I appeared for interview, there were 25 people for single department on single day, right? So you understand the amount of pressure or the workload what that recruiter is going through.
Right.
If you do not make a mark in that interview, they might forget you, and it is not their fault, right? They have a lot of other activities where they're involved. When you want, or when you take an effort to thank them for their valuable time or the inputs, or something about the interview experience. Many times you learn from the interview also. Okay,
Right.
it doesn't matter how bad or good your interview goes. At times I feel when I applied for so many interviews and I gave my interviews, according to me, from my perspective, it was great, but I might not fit for that profile according to the expectations of them. So there's nothing wrong. So if you take an effort and if you value their time or their input or the feedbacks what they have given, right, they'll always make a note of it. The reason is when you do that, do this small gesture from them. One is you're making or reminding them in one or the other way. You're reminding them that you value the job and the organization, right? You can have your own personalized note that what you learned about the organization, because when you're putting up a thank you note, it is generally that you have a brief period of time, right? You can do it in a week or in 10 days approximately. So when you do that, you can always do more of research about the organizations, about the profile, what you have gone through, about the in detail stuff, what you learned new, right? And you can always give that information in the thank you note, what you have forgotten in the interview as well, right? So that will always, it will always help them that you will be always fresh in their mind when they are finalizing the process. Now, like Dipti said it very correctly, because if it is a conglomerate, right, the process will go for very long period of time. Many a time the candidates lose their patience, right? Okay, if they are not replying, somewhere down the line, I'm not selected, okay, or they don't want me. But 90% of the time, it is not the case. You imagine the amount of applications what they get in a day, right? And in that pile of resume, if you do not make an effort to stand out, right, obviously nobody is going to remember you. So it is up to you how you draft a thank you note, what kind of gestures you make, how you will make that organization or that job profile important for yourself, why the skill set is so important to you, why the job is so important to you. I still remember a lot of times it happens. This is not my personal experience, but this is what I've learned from other people's experience. Many times when you apply for a job, you're applying for like too many jobs at a time, right? And you have expectations from one specific organization because you look up to them. This is something which can give me a good growth. Many times you land up for an offer which you're not expecting, might be for a small company or from another organization. Now, it's a very human nature, it's a psychology. You have one job offer at hand, but you always look for something bigger, right? And now you're into a dilemma that whether you should take up this or you should wait for that. Okay. Now, during that process, it is very important. Like you can take this as an opportunity. You can always draft a very good reminder email or a thank you note. Yes, sir, this is something what I'm going through, and this is the situation. But I would really look up to the process, like how I'm going to get selected or not. Just a small little reminder or thanking them during that process, right? When they revert, you will have a very clear picture of whether you should wait or whether you should take up that offer. So that helps you out in lot of decision making process when you apply for an interview. Yeah. If I miss something, even Dipti can add into it because she will have a very different perspective from the other end.
Definitely. Miss Dipti, would you like to say something?
No, I think Professor Jasneet has kind of touched upon all the points that are necessary, and I think she summarized it beautifully. So I have no further points to add.
Okay, so just in addition to this thank you note question, I just wanted to Professor Jasneet just mentioned that it just needs to be you need to stand out as a different person out of the pile of resumes the person has. So how do we do that? Like, although there must be a lot of things, but one or two things that will make us stand out as an person. Ms. Deepti, would you like to answer?
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and answer that.
Yeah.
See, there are a couple of things how, and in today's times, we're seeing some really, really interesting people do interesting stuff, right? Like, for instance, there was this guy, I forget his name starts with an A. He had made a video and he had showcased his designing skills, and he had directly marked Cred, Kunal Shah, and the head of design department on that particular post, and it got like quite a few likes, I think over like 20,000 or so likes. And then after that, he got hired through that post, right? Similarly, there are other ways in which people nowadays are getting hired. I mean, the options are now endless for candidates in terms of how they want to showcase their own skills, right? There is no cap or there is no, set traditional way of hiring. People get hired through referrals, people get hired through resumes, people get hired through video resumes, people get hired without an interview, people get hired with an interview. I guess what makes a person stand out and how the person should capitalize on that is first to understand where he or she would first like to be, right? And then see if that person possesses the requisite skill set, right? And can showcase that in some way or the other. So if you're someone who's great at product management, or for that matter, web designing, have you yourself designed a great website that you can showcase as a side project, right? You can showcase it in your resume, you can show it as in your video resume, you can showcase it on your social media, wherever you want, right? The more you create awareness that this is the area that I want to be in, that is pretty much how people will start recognizing or relating you with someone who's interested or passionate about web designing. So that someone else, if I were recruiter A and some recruiter B is coming and asking, hey, do you know of someone who's great at web designing? I would say, you know what, I saw this guy who had designed something really cool. Why don't you get in touch with him over LinkedIn? Or I came across this amazing resume, I'll forward that to you. Why don't you take a look? And I researched about his particular website, it looks really cool, right? That's pretty much how skills are now being showcased, even in the field of HR. So I'm in the field of HR, and I know it's so difficult to quantify what we do in HR. But with that being said, there are so many different ways in which HRs nowadays write articles, they write blogs, they get published in for a couple of places, they do panel discussions. That is how people start recognizing, okay, this person has the requisite knowledge that is needed by me at the moment for this person to be a part of my organization, right? So there are different ways in which a person can stand out. And if you're only referring to the resume, I would say emphasizing on the skills that you have, quantifying what you have done, right, in some way or the other, right? Even in HR, for that matter, if I say that I have created, say, 15 policies, that is quantifying of data, right? So there should be some way in which data should be quantified. It shouldn't be plain English. So if I say I work in creation of policies, I mean, probably every other HR does, right? But what is the impact that I'm trying to create through the work that I've done? That is what will set me apart from hundreds of others, other resumes which would have mentioned the same thing, saying I'm into policy creation. So that's a long answer to a short question, but that's pretty much how one can stand out from the crowd in today's time.
Sure. So we need to identify the talent, use LinkedIn or other social media platforms wisely, and need to highlight the skills that we have, right? Great.
In the resume specifically, yes.
In the resume, great. So I get confused when I have to wear some clothes and I have to go outside. So I spend a lot of time thinking about what type of clothes should I wear. And specifically when we have an interview, the confusion becomes wider because we have to be formal, but we have to be comfortable. So how do we manage that? Miss Deepti, would you like to answer that?
Yes, for sure. So see, in my opinion, and this you might have seen hundreds of memes and hundreds of videos wherein people are wearing suits on the top, and then they're wearing in shorts and everything that they're comfortable in. I think it's more about what kind of an organization is it, right? Okay. So if you're going to apply for a startup, which is like full, they say, we are a fun startup, we want vibrant young people, and we want to all like chill and everything. Right now, I mean, there's no chilling because there's no office. But with that being said, if you're approaching them with a suit or a really, really formal look, they would feel you're a complete misfit, right? Okay. But on the other hand, you're approaching like a big organization, right? Which is very, very serious about its business. And you approach them with like a casual attire or a casual attitude, right? Casual attire is still okay, but casual attire combined with casual attitude would just not land you that particular job, right? So I believe you'll have to research about the organization a little bit, but with that being said, you don't have to be too hard on yourself that, I have to be completely dressed, fully ready and all that. I think bringing your authentic self to a particular interview, but at the same time recognizing what the interviewer wants or what the organization wants that you want to be a part of, because some part of it is also respecting it when you put on an attire that the organization has said that this is as per the dress code policy, right? So a combination of all that would help. But since all of us are working from home, I think we shouldn't be too hard on ourselves, given the fact, I don't have the best dress available with me at the moment to wear it. So I think researching about the organization and wearing what everybody else would deem, go and check out. Again, I always refer back to LinkedIn. Check out what kind of profile pictures do people have from that organization. Are they wearing formals? Are they wearing casuals? And then accordingly, you can also get ready for the interview.
So, what happens at times is the interviewer asks us a question which we have no idea about. Like we are totally blank. We don't know what the answer is. We know it is related to our subject, but that doesn't help. So in that case, what should we do? We should answer the question, or we should stay blank, or we should, answer whatever we know. How should we go with that? Professor Jasneet, would you like to say something about this?
Sure. This has happened a lot of times. Like a lot of students have shared this experience, because it is not possible that you will remember each and every part of the theory what you have studied.
Right.
So, see, understand the situation when they are asking this. I always tell them that when you are in an interview process, understand what the objective is, why they are asking you. Okay, if you are able to connect with it, then you might be able to give a proper answer what they're looking for. Now, the first situation is if you are completely not aware about the topic what they've asked you. Okay, be very very polite and open about it. Okay, for certain reasons I'm not able to recall, okay, or I am not aware about the subject or the topic for xyz reason. The reason why I'm saying this, when you fake out, okay, when you try and formulate the answer just to protect your fake image, what happens, you yourself land in a trap, because they have much better knowledge. Thanks to the experience what they hold, they have much better knowledge in comparison to you when you're holding a position. So if you try and formulate and fake the things, they'll dig you more. Okay, and then you'll realize, okay, now this is something which is very embarrassing, because they left you at a position where you have no answers, and that, mark my words, that is something which is very very bad for your image.
Yeah.
Okay, so be very polite and tell them is for obvious reasons. And do apologize. Okay, I'm really sorry. I'm not aware about the topic, or I'm not read about the XYZ thing. But I assure you, if you give me some time, okay, or if there is a second round of interview, I'll just prepare about the topic what you're looking for. Now, that is something which you are giving an open-ended situation that you are ready to learn.
Yeah.
This is the idea what an recruiter always look for. They're checking your attitude. When you hide, that means somewhere down the line you are going to do the same thing when you work also in an organization, right? You will have a lot of tasks to handle in an organization, and if you're not honest with your profile, right, you're not going to be honest with your job as well. You will lie, you will manipulate, and no organization will like to hire such kind of person in today's time. Okay, but in contrast to that, if you accept your mistake and tell them, okay, now this is where I lack, but if you give me some time, if I get the proper resources, I'm ready to learn. From that, they'll gauge out, okay, this is a kind of a person, if I give him certain resources available, he has that or she has that kind of attitude where she'll pick the things up slowly and gradually, and that's how the organization will invest in that candidate. Okay. Now, this is something which is supposedly they have asked something out of random. Okay, you're not completely aware about it. If it is something which is related to your subject, so generally we advise that you should always have a revision. Okay, revision in the sense not obviously into detail, but many a times the detailing lies into the little things. Okay, the kind of subjects, the books what you have referred, what you did in certain expected semester, about the project. If you're not aware about that, yes, then it is completely your fault. Okay, people tend to forget what you have done in semester one when you come to the last semester.
Exactly.
So whenever you go for an interview, we always suggest that you always brush up your knowledge. If you have that idea of brushing up, I'm not saying that you need to go into the detail, but you will always be in a position, okay, sir, I have a very limited amount of knowledge, and this is something what I like to share. If I may go wrong, you may let me know. Now, this is something which you are saving yourself or saving your image, but that lies into your hand, and you have to make that an effort. You cannot be you cannot be careless in this kind of situation. I'll say this word, I know this is a very strong word, but yes, people do make this kind of errors. They're very careless about it because they assume that, okay, the recruiter will only ask me something which is related to this semester, this profile only, right? Based on the based on the previous experiences, what they have inquired about from XYZ places, but it is not necessary. Every candidate will have a different kind of skill set with a different attitude. So recruiters tend to ask certain different type of questions which they might not have asked previously. Okay, so don't fall for that trap. If it is about your subject, your knowledge, if it is about your project knowledge, yes, it is your duty, you have to go through it. If it is something which is in general and you're not aware about it, please be very open about it.
Yeah. So making stories is a big no-no, right?
No, it's a very big no. You should never do it.
Great.
Because if they'll dig more into that story, then it will be a very dangerous situation for you.
Right. It will be embarrassing for us.
Yes.
Miss Deepti, would you like to include some points in this?
No, I completely second Professor Jasneet on this. If you start spinning the story, your fairy tale will end very soon because the recruiter is smarter, knows the actual job for which you're getting hired, right? I mean, the recruiter knows what you will be doing in and out. So if you're spinning too many stories, your fairy tale would end just right then and there. So which is why, like Professor Jasneet rightly mentioned, if you do not possess those requisite skills, or if you're not too sure about a particular answer, you can always say, and if you have read about it, okay, this is specifically in some cases, you might have actually read about it, but you do not have practical knowledge. You can always say that based on the amount of bookish knowledge that I have, or the knowledge that I've acquired thanks to Google Baba, this is what I know about the subject. But beyond that, in terms of, how actually do you go about it, that's something that I don't know. And that is what I'm looking forward to learn from this job for which I have applied. Okay, that's another way of trying to pitch yourself for that particular job. It may go well, it may not. I mean, you may end up getting the job or not getting the job, but at least the recruiter will buy your pitch.
Fair enough. Thank you. Okay. So, while writing our CV, we try to include as many points as possible. We try to include our experiences, hobbies, everything that is there. And even after all that, if the recruiter asks that, tell us something which is not in your CV, then what do we do? So, Ms. Deepti, would you like to answer that?
Yeah. So, and this is interestingly in another talk that I delivered last week, a similar question was asked to me that, how do you talk about things which are not there on your CV? All right. So I think it's a it's a canvas that is being handed over to you, right? Yeah. That, the recruiter is asking you to not define yourself via what you have written in your resume, because you are not your resume, right? A part of you is the resume, but what are you beyond that? Right. So I think for anyone who's sitting for interviews, you should always be prepared with like a 2-minute speech on what you really want to talk about yourself. Right. So apart from whatever you see on the resume, I'm an avid classical singer. Right. Or I have done so many things and won so many awards in cooking shows or something of that sort. Right. Because people genuinely want to know who you are beyond the work that you do. There can be multiple reasons the question is being asked. Right. One can be they're trying to see if you will gel well with other teammates if they have similar interests.
Okay.
All right. Does that, serve as a common point from where you can start connecting with them as a team member? Right. Another reason can be because the recruiter genuinely wants to know if you have a life beyond your work. Right? So it might not really be that it's a trick question. It can actually be a question that is probing you to explore yourself and analyze what is it that you're beyond your resume and what do you bring to the table as a person and not really as a professional. Right. So instead of getting scared of this question, I think what is more important is for you to realize, how do I really ensure that my strengths are brought forward?
Right.
Right. So if I were to say, for that matter, if someone told me, tell me something which is not there on your resume, I would say I really love writing quotes. So I'm a big time writer on yourquotes.in. And apart from that, I also am a big time movie buff. I like watching a lot of movies, a lot of TV series, and I also like to upskill myself. Right. And this is not based on because someone is telling me that I need to get upskilled. I actually like to upskill myself in different areas or pick up newer subjects. So I'm trying to learn something about stock markets very recently because thanks to LinkedIn being a big time influence on me, but I'm trying to learn a little bit more about stock market. So I've enrolled myself in a course. Similarly, I'm trying to learn more about psychology. So I've enrolled myself in a course and about career mentoring as well. Right. So I think when the recruiter asks you this question, I think instead of you getting scared that what I should answer, you should take it as a challenge that, oh my God, I'm being given an opportunity to talk about myself as a person, as who I am, right? You can also talk about, in that case, you can also talk about your family, right? I really like spending my time with my pet dog, Tuffy. Okay, I don't have a pet dog. I'm just hypothetically making it up, right? I really like to spend time with my sister. We usually go out on drives, something of that sort, which will tell them that you're a human, you're not a robot. And even if you come to work, you bring that human side of yourself along with you.
Yeah.
So that's my answer to this particular question.
Great.
That helps.
Great. So, Professor Jasneet, I was asking Miss Deepthi also that, if the recruiter asks that what is something which is not in your CV, Miss Deepthi has already talked about a lot of things that we can mention, which is like, our hobbies or something like watching movie and going out on a drive with sister, something like that. So, what is your opinion on this? And also, in addition to this, if we are talking about movies, what happens is, according to me as a person, I think that the recruiter might think that, okay, maybe she's not that serious at work, or maybe she'll waste time or something like that. So how do we ensure that it gives a positive impact to us? Yeah.
Okay. For that, like I completely agree to Dipti. You should always give something more informative, which is not into their CV. Okay. Generally, it is said that when they look at your CV, recruiters, when they look at the CV, they have that glance and they know. They have already created that image in their mind that what they would like to ask. What are the kind of what kind of a person you are, right?
Yeah.
So give them a piece of information which you have not mentioned, because that will break that monotony. Okay. If you'll repeat something which is already there into the CV, they've already read it, right? And then again that loop starts. Okay, this person whom we are talking to is like a record. He or she doesn't know about himself or herself because he's already putting something which is already there into the CV. So I agree to her. Like you should always you can talk about a lot of stuff. Okay, whether it is your hobbies, your passion, the extracurricular activities, what you like to do, be it on Saturday, Sunday, right? She put it down very nicely that you can always tell them. You see, I'm repeating the stuff that whatever you tell them, understand the objective. Okay, if you tell them, okay, I'm a kind of a person who likes to hang out with my friends on Saturday and Sunday, that means you're very socially interactive. Okay, you need that kind of time to rejuvenate yourself. Now, this is something which depends on you, what kind of words you put up.
Right.
If you say I'm a movie buff and I like to watch movie, obviously they are going to consider it negative. Now, movie buff is something who watches the movies at streak, okay? And for him or her, that work doesn't matter at that point of time, because that is something what he or she is passionate about.
Right.
So you might not fit for the job. But if you say I like to watch good content, okay, on weekends, I try to see one or two movies. I'm very fascinated with thriller or psychological kind of a movies. Now that is something that which gives an idea. Okay, what kind of a person you are. So when you put up the words to describe yourself, choose the words very, very carefully. I always tell this because I have experienced this from a lot of students. Okay, I still remember it very, very clearly. This girl, name was Ayushi. She was appearing for an interview. She appeared for quite a few of interviews and she didn't get selected. Okay, so I was trying to figure out like what is going wrong with her. She had the skill set. She applied for some good companies, certain startups as well. Now, when she was framing the answer, the problem with the statement, what she quoted was that she's looking for a sympathy. Okay, as I'm the only earning member in the family and I don't have my father, right? I'm really looking forward for this job. So this is something which brings a perspective that you're looking for a sympathy from the recruiter. Okay, and that goes into a negative frame of mind. So I told her, okay, let's not put this. If you want to pass this information, put it into a better frame of words. Okay, we tried a lot of permutation and combination, and one of them got clicked, and then she landed up in a job. So many times you will not realize, but certain, like I'll say, very small little things will matter a lot. I told you that from our perspective, when someone asks how was the interview, oh, it was great, okay, and then the interview doesn't turn up. I mean, you don't get selected because you don't realize that at that point of time you're in too much of stress. Okay, you really don't know what you're speaking. So I always tell them, please practice beforehand, at least 2 or 3 times, so that you know the kind of pressure what you'll go through, the kind of questions what they'll ask you, the kind of answers what you are going to frame. Obviously, you're not going to say word by word, but you will always have that idea in your mind. So let's say if I say apart from hobbies or passions, right, you'll always have certain what do I say, a side activity, a leisure activity what you'll have. You might not do it like on regular basis, but sometimes you just out of random you feel like, okay, now I want a break. I'm fed up of this monotonous work. I want to do something new. Okay, because every person or everyone will have a different type of attitude or their skill set or their interest. I'm not settled down with something which gets me into that monotonous routine. So I always try and find out something to develop my skills. It is random, it is nowhere connected to my job. Okay, if I quote an example, let's say you are working into a technical aspect, into designing or web designing or XYZ, right? And if you come up randomly, okay, I love to bake. Okay, I'm fond of baking. Now that is a very fresh perspective. Not necessarily it relates to your job, but very important how you quoted it, how you put up. Now, if you out of absurd context, you say I love baking, obviously the other person will not be able to relate that why you're talking this. Give them a perspective. I look forward something which always keep my interest high, and it doesn't matter. It always has to be technical, but I love to upgrade my skills, whether it is on creative or non-creative aspect. So I explored baking, and I'm really enjoying it.
Great.
So it will fit into that perspective.
Sure. Okay, so I got the answer now that we have to put in all types of things that we are doing, which may not be related to the job for sure, but putting the right words also matter for the recruiter to understand that we are, we can create a positive impact, not necessarily a negative one. Okay. Coming on to our next question. So it is so uncomfortable to sit at one place. Like I'm sitting for like 30 minutes and it is already uncomfortable for me because, especially in times like this, we are all day we are lying down or, sitting on the bed and working from wherever we want. So in situations like this, how do we maintain our, posture and our hand gestures while giving an interview on online or maybe through home? Yeah, so what should we do in that situation? Professor Jasneet, what would you like to say?
See, the key to that, according to me, what I have come to know from my experience is that you have to practice. Body language or gesture is something which you cannot do like at that moment. You really need to be very, very aware about yourself, how your body reacts, because this is a very common science, right? Your body language will never lie. I'll give you one example. Many a times, like this actually has happened, okay, with one of my students. He appeared for an interview in a bank. It was an MNC bank, and he was asked a question. According to him, technically, the answer was very correct. He quoted about his strength, but the only problem is when he quoted that answer, his body language was very slouched back. He was lying back on the chair with his legs crossed. Now, this was something which created a very negative image. It portrayed as if he's trying to show his attitude. Okay, he is having an upper hand in front of the recruiter. Because of that thing, I mean, obviously the interview didn't go very well post that scenario. So if you really want to work onto your body language and your gestures, I always suggest that you always have certain mock round of interviews if possible. If you are, it's not completely into your hand, but a practice will always help you out in the real time situation. When I'm trying to talk to you now, I'm making a lot of hand movements and trying to make a lot of gestures. The reason is I have practiced, okay, and I've practiced it for years now. So I know how it works. I know why it is important. I know where I have to use what kind of hand movements and what kind of gestures. Right now, I have that. I still feel that somewhere down the line I'm tied down because this is the screen, and you can only my upper half of the body. I cannot show the full body language or the movement, right? I trying to figure out new ways. So this point of I'm trying to communicate through a screen. Now you understand that if you cannot see, if I try and talk to you like this, right, with no hand movements, no gesture, it will convey something different. The people will perceive something very different. So when you want to involve them, you have to put it through your body language, through your eye contact, through your smile. So it comes with practice. So I always suggest, please, if you get an opportunity, please try and practice at least 2 or 3 mock round of interviews. It will really help you out in interviews.
You're on mute, Priyambada.
Yeah. We can't hear you, Priyam.
Sorry. Am I audible now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Ms. Deepti, please, would you like to add something to this?
No, like Professor Jasneet has already again summarized it beautifully, and I think I am of a similar opinion that a lot of your body language while seeing on a screen conveys a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
Which is why if you see, I would have preferred sitting on a chair properly, but then I am moving you home, so I do not have that luxury. But with that being said, people who are appearing for interviews, especially when it's a video interview, and if you are, I would specifically emphasize on points in case if you're not able to find a good sitting place, right? Please clarify that to the recruiter well in advance. Clarify things such as, I do not have a great Wi-Fi connection. I may get dropped off in between, or I do not have a nice place to sit for the moment because my house is getting renovated, or there is some other issue that is happening at my home, or you may hear some background noise. It is always important during these kind of interviews to set the context to the recruiter, saying that certain things are not happening. What are the reasons behind those, right? Yeah. So if you can see, I am sitting a little elevated because that's pretty much how I have, because of the way that I have figured out how to sit on this particular bed, which is new, right? The same way some other person might have some other problem. But what I'm saying is it's always important to let the recruiter know well in advance so that the recruiter doesn't misconstrue, right? So if you're not telling the recruiter, say for instance in advance, that my Wi-Fi is not going to work properly, right? You get dropped off in between like 3-4 times. Recruiter doesn't have so much of patience, right? The recruiter would wait, and then after that the recruiter would lose his or her cool, right? The same way when you are not able to sit properly, right? There should be a reason as to why you are not able to sit properly. Maybe you're sitting in an uncomfortable position. Seeing you, the recruiter might be feeling, oh my God, why is this person not able to sit comfortably? Right? So the attention of the recruiter will go away from the actual interview and will go to the, trying to figure out why are you trying to sit so uncomfortably? Is everything okay at your end? Should I be intervening and asking more such related questions rather than concentrating on job related questions, right? So I think in these video interviews, I think what is of utmost importance is setting the context even before the interview starts. Right? Whether be it the related to seating, related to Wi-Fi, related to any other background noise that comes from your end, I think context setting is very important.
Great. Understood. So we have a question related to this from Palak. She says that, Zoom has option for virtual backgrounds. So what type of impression does it give if we have a virtual background on behind us and not the wall or something else? Yeah. So Ms. Deepti,
Okay,
you can also answer, and Professor Jasneet, we would like to get your opinion also. Yeah.
Yes, I'll start off because honestly, in my opinion, what I've seen so far it doesn't matter actually. Right? If you have a background, if you don't have a background, I think virtual background more or less helps if the background behind you is really bad, like you're sitting in a really cluttered room, and there are clothes lying around, and there are certain other stuff that is lying around, which you probably, because it's too personal to you, you don't want the other person to see. Right? It's not because the other person will get judgmental about it, but it's more about protecting your own privacy, which is why you can go and put in a virtual background. That can be one piece. The other piece can be if you're trying to brand about yourself, right? So again, given the fact that if you're interviewing for something and you've built a website, why don't you put up a virtual background of the website that you built? Another way to grab the eyeball, like you were saying, right? How to stand out from the crowd. Yeah. That's another way that you can stand out from the crowd, right? There can be multiple reasons, but with that being said, I don't see a difference in terms of the opinion when it comes to the actual interview with the background included or without being included. The way you use it is what matters. Definitely. Whether you're trying to protect your privacy, or another thing is if you're actually trying to showcase who you are or brand yourself. Those are the two cases in which I think a virtual background can help.
Sure. It's a really nice idea to portray what we have already done, maybe our website or portfolio. That's a really nice idea and a unique one. Great. Professor Jasneet, would you like to add to this?
I think I quite agreed to this point. It really doesn't matter if you use it or if you do not use it. But yes, the idea behind using it, that is really important. Okay. If you're not very comfortable showing your background, if you feel that the background is very clumsy, right? And this will hamper your concentration, because obviously when you're giving an interview, you'll always see your reflection. Okay. And if you're continuously seeing and getting conscious about it, so it's better to cover it up so that you are not getting distracted. Okay, because if you get distracted, the recruiters will always pick you from that. They will always identify it, because it will somewhere down the line affect your fluency or the flow of the interview, right? So try not to do that. If you're using it, try to keep it bare minimum or very neutral colors. Don't try and use some or get too experimented with your, at least with the interview section, I would say. If it is a very casual meeting, you can always experiment with, because people have this tendency, right? There's a lot of people who like to experiment with the backgrounds, with the colors of it. Not try and use too jazzy or bright colors. The only reason is you never know if the light reflects there. It might not look good on this. Right. And instead of you getting distracted, the other person will get distracted who's taking your interview. So if you're using it, try and keep it more of neutral colors or the subtle ones. Okay, that will help you a lot.
Yeah. So if we have a sea beach in background or a Burj Khalifa in background, we should avoid that. And, it enhances our confidence if we have a proper picture and a proper background. Yes. Great. So we have one more question from the audience. So Mary says that she has an experience of around 15 years or so, and when the recruiter asks that sum up your experience in few sentences, so how is that possible? I mean, 15 years is a long time, so how can we do that in few sentences? Professor Jasneet, you can go first.
Okay. If you have like a very big amount of experience to show, I always suggest that try and pick something which is very correlating or which is very insightful in terms of that job what you're applying. Okay. When you talk about 15 years of career, 15 years of experience, you will have a varied set of experiences. You will have a varied set of organizations which you like to correlate. But if you try and jumble up all the things together, it will be very confusing for the recruiter to understand. Many times it has happened. For example, there are a lot of people who are overqualified. This is a very common statement when people get rejected in an interview, because they say that you're overqualified. They have a lot of degrees to show. So we always tell them, try and put up certain things which are only relevant to that job. Okay. If you want, because in that 15 years of tenure, obviously you will have something constructive to correlate with the current job what you're applying for. Okay. So pull that experiences from the 15 years, correlate it with your skills and experiences, and then put in front of the recruiter. So that will give you an advantage where you'll be able to highlight the things what you want to share with them. That will help them a lot in their decision making as well.
Okay, okay. So we should highlight only those experiences which are related to the job we are applying for.
Exactly. Now, if they ask you,
Mhm.
like during the interview, if they're asking you about the other job experiences, you can always tell them, like, what was the job all about, how it helped, what you did. But
Mhm.
let it be something which they would like to indulge into. They
Mhm.
might not be looking for that area of expertise what you hold on to. So it is better if you give them an open end. Okay, okay, now this is something what I feel is good, which I can relate and I can give an advantage to this organization or to this job, and the other remaining part will be their decision if they would like to know or they would not like to know.
Right, right. Okay, Miss Deepthi, what do you have to say for this?
Okay. So I would do it a little bit differently. So if you are someone with 15 years of experience, firstly, congratulations, you have 15 years of experience. But with that being said, I think if I were in your place, I would do it in a storytelling fashion, right? I would start off with how I started my journey. Of course, not emphasize too much on how I began, and until unless it was like a really, really big turning point in your career. Talk about it a little bit, highlight what were some of the great achievements that there were in your 15 years of career, right? So you may have like tens of 10, 10 or 20 of those, probably pick the top 5 achievements, or for that matter, top 3 achievements, right? And you can spin it into a nice story and tell them that, the reason that I'm looking forward to apply for this role is if I have described my story really well, these are certain things which I have already done in the past. And these are certain things that I intend to do along with you guys, right? And I think 15 years of experience brings in a lot of pride. So I would say when you're discussing about that, please maintain that look of pride on your face, because you have braved it. You have been in the corporate world for so long. You must have seen your own share of ups and downs. So I would say when you're telling the stories, tell it as if you were a human, right? And tell it, of course, highlight your professional achievements, but tell it in a way that you were a human. And in the end, I'll tell you one thing: people, though they may connect with numbers or whatever it is, in the end, people connect with emotions. So the more emotion you bring to the story in terms of how you're telling it, how you're explaining your 15 years, how much pride you're bringing along with that, and what is it that you're bringing to the table with your 15 years of work experience, like Professor Jasmeet mentioned, I think all that put together will build a kick-ass summary which you can portray in front of the recruiter, and then of course, keeping the skill set match
Mhm.
and cultural fit match everything into perspective. If everything works out, you will definitely back that particular job.
Definitely, definitely. So, cooking up stories is a big no-no, but storytelling, whatever we have already done, storytelling that might help. That is really wonderful. Okay, so I would
That's
request,
well summarized, Priyamvada.
yeah,
Cooking up stories is a no-no, but storytelling is a yes, yes,
yeah,
based on previous experiences.
yes, definitely. So I would request the audience, if you have any questions, you can write in the chat box. Still, we have one last question for Professor Jasneet and Miss Deepthi. So uh, at times the company asks questions related to their companies, and also they might ask that, how can you contribute to our company, and questions like that. So for that, do we need to research, and if we need to research, what type of research should be done to understand, to answer the questions which say that how can I contribute, or how will the growth effect will be affected by my contribution, something like that. What should we do about that? Miss Deepthi, you can
Okay.
continue.
Yeah. So basically, there are 2, 3 things that you can do in this case. All right. So first thing is, of course, research about the organization.
Mhm.
I would say research more about the values that the organizations endorse. Okay. So every organization has their own set of values that they kind of, or a value framework that they would have come up with. It's very, very important to know what are the different kinds of values that organization A believes in versus organization what organization we believe. So, okay, that is one part of it. The other part of it is also about being aware about the latest news which involves that particular organization. Okay, so did it acquire someone? Did it raise funding? Did it do something great and win an award in recent times? Right? That's another way to understand where is the organization trying to go, in which direction. The third thing that I always tell people who usually approach me on LinkedIn is to reach out to folks who are already in those roles. Right. Okay, to understand what does that day-to-day life looks like, right? Because oftentimes the job descriptions that are kind of shared with people, the actual work that you tend you end up doing may be like a 60% match of that, but a 40% of it would still be like really in the air, right? As in how the organization progresses and as in how the organizations thinks that there should be a skills revamp at the moment. Right? Which is why it's always important to get in touch with someone who's already into that particular role or maybe a level higher to understand what does their day-to-day life look like. And then once you have an idea about all these things put together, that is when you can frame your answer in terms of saying, what do I really bring to the table? How can I contribute to this particular role? Right? And the recruiter will actually appreciate the fact that you took out so much of pains to research about the organization, to research about the people, to reach out to people, right? That means you are already someone who can proactively work on your own. Right. You don't need that push that you will have to go in that particular direction or you will have to do that particular thing, right? So I think such kind of candidates get more appreciated by recruiters, and these guys are simply a delight to work with. Okay. I mean, if they're actually bringing the same skill set to their actual work and not just to the interviews.
Right. So the efforts and the initiative counts. And two things that you said were related to, connecting with people who are already in the company, because, finding about the values and beliefs of the company is also something which we'll understand only if we know some person. And also if the job description is 100% correct or not, or is it actually what we are reading. So that is also something which we'll know only when we interact with someone who is from the company. Fair enough. Okay, Professor Jasneet, please add something to this now.
I think Dipti has very well covered all the points of what every candidate should do when they go for the interview, like in regards to your question. So I don't think I like to repeat the stuff because she has summarized and she has given you an example of why it is important. Yeah. That is quite fair enough.
Okay. So thank you so much. I mean, we are done with questions, although I'll see if we have more questions.
I think I got one direct message from Sneha. I don't think she's on the call right now, but this is for the benefit of the larger audience. She asked me, how does one ace an interview for a role much higher than the skill set one possesses, right? Yes. So good question, because oftentimes we aspire to be in roles which demand more, how would I put it, greater set of skills than the ones that we currently possess, right? And it's often very, it's a difficult task to explain, why would you be a better fit for a particular role when you don't actually possess those particular skills, right? So in that case, what I usually do and what I've seen other people do and what I may have done in my previous interviews as well is I at least try and get certified in those skills, which means I may not actually have the practical knowledge to implement those skill set, but I am showing that I'm really interested in getting myself upskilled in this particular field, right? So that is one way of showing that even if you don't possess the practical working skills at the moment, but you still possess it in the form of a degree in some way or a certificate in some way. Right? That's one way. The other way is also showcasing your passion, right? In terms of getting into a role of your choice. So you can always say, you know what, I've not done a role like this, but something similar to this, I have done it in this way, right? So I've led a team in a corporate environment, but I've actually volunteered in an NGO and I've led a team of 1,000 members. That you can definitely use. Of course, not use the example of, I am leading a team of 1,000 people on Telegram and 256 people on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
That all won't work. But real life skills in terms of you leading a set of volunteers, I think even though you don't have it in your real corporate world experience, you still have it outside it, right? So that's pretty much how you can ace these interviews for roles which require much higher skill set than you possess. And the other thing that you also need to showcase is you're always ready to learn.
Okay.
Right? The interviewer throughout the interview will know whether you are someone who has an open mindset to learn new skills, or you are actually you think that you have an open mindset, but in reality you are someone who has got a closed mindset and you do not want to look beyond that.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much how I'd like to answer this particular question.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, so in addition to this, Professor Jasneet, I wanted to ask that it's quite a personal question. So at times, what happens is even I started upskilling myself in learning things which I wanted to, but were not completely related to what I've studied earlier. So in that case, especially in situations like this, when COVID times are there, no one can go outside, and just like Miss Deepthi mentioned that we cannot go outside and work somewhere in an NGO, and considering WhatsApp or social media followings cannot be included in upskilling. So how much does it matter to if we take up a course on any of the platforms which are providing online courses, and does it impact the on the does it make an impact on the recruiter that okay, this person has done this course? Because at times the course are not even that they do not have strict rules and everything, so sometimes we don't even finish the complete course and everything. So how is it, how does the recruiter see it?
See, it's a very tricky situation, because like what you mentioned is very correct. Nowadays there are a lot of platforms which provide you with tons of opportunities where you can upscale in your domain or into another domain which you would like to grow your career into, right? But as I mentioned earlier, whatever domain you're choosing to upskill yourself, be very, very clear that where you want to land up. Because recruiters are very smart enough. If you say, let's say you are into a technical domain and you want to get into management domain, you might not have that experience. But if you have taken up that program to upskill yourself, they'll always judge you based on the knowledge. Okay. If you lack over there in terms of knowledge, obviously you're going to get misfit, right?
Okay.
They might not consider you as a good candidate for that kind of profile. So when you present, and now again it will impact your image when you're presenting that you've upskilled yourself and you lack knowledge in that also. So that creates a negative image that you're just doing it for the sake of doing it, or for the certificate, or you're
Right.
faking it out. So if you're very confident, if you chose a program and you upskill yourself, right, be very, very sure that you want to highlight it. Prepare yourself very well in terms of the questions, what they will send you across, right? How to correlate that with the past experience, or how to correlate with the future expectations of your job. Why you think that this aspect is going to help you out into your future career development. There are a lot of organizations which promote this kind of upskilling in today's time, because a lot of organization needs that kind of multitasking. Let's consider there is a very good engineer, but he lacks into management skills. So the organization pushes them, okay, now we are going to support you, you do this kind of program. But that doesn't make them fit. You always have to prove your skills that it is worth it.
Okay.
Only certificate will give you an entry to land up in an interview, but you need to prepare your knowledge and your skills as well to correlate with your past and future experiences. So that will always help you out.
Okay, great. Understood. Ms. Deepthi, would you like to conclude now all about this question? This is the last question that we have.
No. I think what Professor Jasneet said made complete sense to me, because it's equally important to look. I mean, only getting certification won't help. The knowledge that you got while undergoing that certification or while undergoing an arduous program makes more sense. Which is why when we do engineering or MBA, it's not just, the 4 years, we are not doing it just for the degree, right? The 4 years for engineering count, because along with the lessons that you learn in a classroom, you also learn life lessons. The same way for MBA, along with the management lessons, you also learn how to manage your life or manage your team, right? So there is so much more to these degrees, and even for that matter, certifications, like people who undergo like 3 months of certification. It's the amount of knowledge that they are gaining in the process, which in the end translates in the form of, a successful completion certificate or a certificate of appreciation, right? So I think knowledge is more important than just holding a certificate, because like she said, it's an entry point to the particular interview, but proving yourself basis the knowledge that you've acquired or the skill set that you've gained while undergoing it counts more.
Yeah, definitely. It's a personal experience also. So I started with the digital marketing course. I haven't completed it yet. I mean, I started it like last year, but I have learned so many things from it that I've evolved my personal blog from like totally evolved like 60-70% just because of those tips and everything. Although it is not yet completed, the course is yet to complete. Okay, thank you so much, Professor Jasneet. Thank you so much, Ms. Deepthi. I would just like to say that yeah. So there was a question in the beginning which I had to answer, that I got the position where I interviewed, and that is because what I think is that positive attitude works, and like our speakers have also told us that being confident also matters a lot, and in the process of all these questions we have understood that along with confidence we have to make a lot of preparations and efforts and initiatives before going further for the interview, because this session was for interviews, but I think there are a lot of things that we need to do before that for the interview. Yeah. And there is a lot of research also that needs to be done for the recruiters, for the companies, everything for that matter. And lastly, the postures that also matter a lot, but comfort also matters. The recruiters understand that if the person is comfortable and confident in whatever way the person is sitting, that matters more than uh, sitting in some way or dressing in some way. So there are a lot of insights from both of you. Thank you so much for this wonderful session, and this really means a lot to us. And I hope the audience also learned a lot of things from this and will give better interviews from next time. Not on It might not happen that all the interviews go well, but the experience might be wonderful from from right now. We'll learn a lot, and we hope to meet you again. And thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Professor Jasneet and Ms. Deepthi, if you want to add something, you can do that, please.
No, I just wanted to thank you, Priyambada, well moderated, and I'm really elated to have shared this screen space with Professor Jasneet. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.
I would really love to thank you, Priyambada, and Dipti, and the participants as well. Like, I just hope that we have given a lot of value addition to the participants, and they would have really learned a lot of stuff from this.
Yeah.
Okay, it was a great session. Even I learned a lot of insights from Dipti in terms of recruiters' point of view. So that was great learning for me.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.